Kings of the oceans, kings of the seas, gods of war. Pirates. Writers and screenwriters have made real thugs out of these desperate guys. Not that this has no basis, because from antiquity to the present day, pirates, like the plague, terrorize deep waters. They swoop in like a typhoon, rob those who did not have time to hide or escape. And yet, the main hooligans never relied too much on brute force. And even more so, they did not seek to kill everyone on the captured ship. The main goal of all pirates is money. More precisely, anything that can be exchanged for money or something useful. Ideally, everything looked as simple as possible. They quickly rob some tourists or carriers and sell the stolen goods to the nearest land. Such a simple strategy has been and remains the main one in the arsenal of most pirates. Piracy emerged at the same time as seafaring. In ancient times, sea merchants and pirates were the same profession. In antiquity, coastal settlements were attacked by thunderstorms of deep waters that seized food and captured people for slavery. Despite civilization's progress, pirates operated outside the law and norms. They started being seen as criminals, not just maritime entrepreneurs. Aggressive Posden's lives weren't worsened and aspiring pirates didn't decrease. Danger and life on the waves attracted many. Not only inveterate thugs went to sea robbers. Many pirates fled to deep waters due to forced service, unemployment, or justice. Interestingly, many young men who were dragged by force to serve in the same waters, in the Navy, eventually chose robber ships. After all, even in the always elite, cool British Naval Army, the guys were forced, not invited. And this caused some resistance. They also paid less there than the pirates could offer. Add freedom, action, and a flexible schedule and the choice is clear. Romance, you sail with the wind, do not bypass the waves in search of gold. That's how movies and TV often depict pirate life. In fact, everything was quite ordinary. Sea bandits never specifically hunted for gold or legendary treasures. Writers and filmmakers have created this pirate myth. These guys grabbed whatever wasn't guarded or whoever couldn't escape. The slave trade has been a key aspect of this so-called business. Pirates were generally not as bloodthirsty and ruthless as often portrayed in movies. Everything is prosaic. The fewer people you kill, the more you can sell later or at least use them as your own slaves on the ship. This is more profitable than wasting bullets or dirtying weapons. But still, piracy is a dangerous business. Often it's either you or them. Expecting unnecessary pleasantries from them is useless. Usually, everything looked like this. Pirates approach a ship, shout menacingly, raise sails like the Jolly Roger, and fire warning shots without damaging goods. This usually scared victims into giving the attackers everything they wanted. A quarter of the ship's property could often be bought off. Agree, not terrible either. Pirates usually fled when confronted by someone armed. They did not like to engage in open battles and skirmishes. And for what? It is much wiser to avoid conflict and just swim to look for some weaker and more fearful prey. Furthermore, pirate ships have always been among the fastest. Only in movies do sea robbers sail on huge galleons. In life they usually had enough small but nimble ships. You can't ram others on these schooners, but you can escape with the loot. Pirates loved cool and formidable sails. They weren't limited to the cheerful Roger, there could be an hourglass, saber, spear, or something else formidable. Pirates clearly understood all the times of their existence. Reputation plays into their hands. They upheld the reputation of being ruthless and deadly, like a terrifying storm for sailors in deep waters. Pirates fueled interest in themselves instead of dispelling myths. Often they just invented amazing, almost mystical stories. It is not surprising that there are so many vivid, but not very realistic legends about sea robbers. The most famous, perhaps, is about Edward Teach, nicknamed Blackbeard. This legendary Briton was the thunderstorm of the Caribbean in the 18th century. Early in his career, he actively attacked the French, who were British enemies, making him a national hero in his homeland. But in those days, the British government did not appreciate the efforts of Edward and other pirates, began an active struggle against them. Teach did not want to surrender to justice, became Blackbeard, and turned into one of the most famous pirates of all time. Edward and his gang on the ship, Queen Anne's Revenge, cut through the waves for only a few years, but very successfully. A tailwind brought the crew to South Carolina's shores, where Blackbeard captured 9 ships. He held influential passengers hostage for a large ransom, angering local authorities who offered a reward for his capture. In the end, Edward Teach died, as befits a pirate, in a naval battle. Historians refute myths about Blackbeard being crazy or cruel. The main legend is the captain had 14 wives. Wedding ceremonies on the Queen Anne's Revenge ship were common. Pirate ships function as separate states. Each brigade had its own constitution, a code of conduct. Often the rules were very strict. Gambling, alcohol, fights and torture of prisoners were banned, but we are still talking about gang groups. Therefore, the laws were appropriate. If the captain is too impudent, there is no impeachment. The crew simply threw the tyrant overboard. Brutal, but effective. But medicine on ships was not effective. Ship medicines were highly valuable, often used by pirates as ransom for prisoners. The role of a doctor was often played by a cook, who at least knew how to wield a knife professionally. Amputation is common on ships, so pirates missing limbs or eyes are not just stereotypes. At least not really. Limbless guys couldn't be full-fledged gang members. Therefore they were simply given financial compensation and sent to a well-deserved retirement. Sometimes only pirates could leave half-rates without a hand. Sailors didn't use hooks for fingers, that's artistic fiction, blindfolds are true. They were often used to acclimate vision to darkness, useful in holds. Pirates did wear earrings. Not for beauty, of course. The jewelry ensured burial preparations in case of sudden death. Parrots appeared on ships in the early 18th century in cages for sale, not on pirates' shoulders. But cats were appreciated by the kings of the deep waters. These animals destroyed rats. In addition, they were considered lucky. Pirates were superstitious, but didn't believe women on board meant bad luck. On the contrary, sometimes the young ladies even became the main ones on the ship. The most successful among the captains was the Chinese Zheng Shi. The girl worked as a prostitute in a brothel. She won the heart of one of Asia's top pirates, Zheng Yi. He married her and took her to the ship. Years later, the captain died, and his wife managed the business. She established strict rules for subordinates, transforming a gang into a real army. Zheng Shi controlled the entire South China Sea and commanded an entire fleet, which allowed her to fight the British, Portuguese and Chinese. The powerful Qin dynasty, which ruled at the beginning of the 19th century, could not cope with the pirate queen. In the end, the parties made peace. Zheng Shi not only received an amnesty, but also kept all her wealth and died in luxury. And Bonnie and Mary Read, from wealthy families, became famous for defying gender norms, fighting, and drinking alongside men. Mary pretended to be a guy most of her life, only and saw through her. Mary Aunt God's Will, Grace O'Malley, Rachel Wall, Sayeeda Al-Hura, and many other women at different times in history proved that piracy is a profession of both sexes. And the god of the seas is not necessarily a man. Pirates have never been the best armed or most powerful in deep waters. They relied on speed, cunning and bravery instead. Even the coolest fleets often couldn't do anything about the fearless robbers. You never know who is more to be afraid of in open water: a storm or pirates.